Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about David Icke. So many of you have been commenting about him and saying, please do the chart for David Icke. And what's so interesting is I already, because so many people were interested in him, I already included him in my new book, which is about to come out in a few weeks, on Uranus, the outer planet Uranus, because it was so exceptionally placed and telling in his chart. I think you're going to better understand what David Icke is all about. So let's put up the birth chart of David Icke right up here to better understand how his chart reveals such an interesting person. He is the ultimate when it comes to conspiracy theories, but you know, he has a lot of interesting wisdom to share. Let me give you a little bit of background about David Icke. First of all, he came from a family that wasn't well off, and he definitely had some issues around fear with his mother, who couldn't pay the rent many times, and when people would come collect it, he would run and hide underneath the furniture, and he just remembers that this was a nightmare, not being able to afford to live where they were, and those kind of difficulties. So looking at his chart, you'll think about the moon being the mother, and the moon, by the fact that it's placed in the nakshatra Ardra, is a very difficult nakshatra. And actually, its symbol is a teardrop. And so there's some kind of sadness for the mother. And by the fact that the moon is in the 9th house, this also reflects to the father, because the 9th house is also the house of father. So you can see that this interesting nakshatra, plus moon being with Uranus in the 9th house, is so interesting to me, because Uranus is the planet that deals with unconventional ways, unique rebelliousness about rebelling against society, the conservative norm. People with a strong Uranus will never, ever be part of the conservative world. And definitely David is not. But going back again into his life, well, he used to be an athlete, a star baller, and then he went into talking about all the sports. He was a reporter on the sports, and he was really famous and well known if you research and go back to earlier times. But then he said he had a vision, and he started getting all this information and visionary stuff. And that's where he came out with that everything is vibration, and that we're all connected on different levels of awareness and consciousness in the universe, which I definitely believe that as well. He came up with the whole theory, though, of the lizard reptilians, where the people that are controlling the world are actually from another planet, and they are part of the race that's called the reptilians that are controlling the world. Now, I'm not so sure about that. A lot of people believe in it. I'm not going to say whether it's true or not. But it is an out there philosophy. You got to admit that. It is completely out of this world. And you know, one way or another, I feel like he is getting important visions. And maybe some of it isn't exactly interpreted correctly, but I do know that he's getting these visions, and these things are definitely happening to him where he's getting information. And I believe with Uranus, which is called the Great Awakener, it awakens us to things. Uranus being right there next to the moon, which is the mind, our emotions, our consciousness, our awareness, that yes, he gets flashes of insight. He has these true awakenings where he can see and feel and know things. But sometimes things are symbolic. I'm not saying one way or another, but I'm saying maybe not everything he's saying is right on. Now, another thing I noticed, which is interesting, I went to see what he was up to lately, so I went onto YouTube to research David Icke and see what his last videos are. He's been taken off YouTube. I don't even know what caused him to be taken off. I just wanted to know what his recent posts were, and I'm sure, you know, I could go to his website and figure all this out, but that's beside the point. The point is that he feels a calling to uplift and inform humanity. I believe, looking at his chart, he has good intentions. It's just sometimes I don't think that by causing great fear in the society of the world, that really helps people. Yes, we can believe that possibly there's powers out there controlling things, and we don't have to be a part of that. But we don't have to be so consumed with fear that it paralyzes us and we can't change or be productive. That's where I come off with a difference of an opinion. And everyone is allowed their opinions, so don't ridicule people when they have a different opinion. I'm very open to what David Icke has to say. And some of his works and some of his teachings are very spiritual and uplifting, and I choose to listen to those. So looking at David Icke's moon, and by the way, I want to add something else. There is another person in the book that has Uranus conjunct the moon. I think you will be very interested to know it's Timothy Leary. And Timothy Leary is another unconventional, rebellious, out there individual. He just pretty much claimed, and for those of you that don't know who Timothy Leary was, he was the Harvard professor in psychology that did the experiments with LSD. And he did this actually with Richard Alpert, who once they both got fired and had to go on their way, Richard Alpert decided to go to India and find himself, spirituality. The LSD experiences had an effect on his mind that opened him to seeing things from a different viewpoint. Find it very, very interesting in my book on Uranus. I also have Richard Alpert in there, who later changed his name to Ram Dass. He has Uranus exactly conjunct his sun in the 10th house. I'll have to do a video on that. But going back to David Icke, I find it so interesting that Timothy Leary, who actually went to prison and, you know, suffered the consequences of his rebelliousness and behavior, but he told people essentially to zone out, take LSD, and go into nirvana. But obviously it didn't work. And I think he even after all of that went on to Wall Street to be a businessman. So things change. He went into business. Richard Alpert went to India and became Ram Dass, Baba Ram Dass. So it has quite a different effect. But back to David Icke, the one that you're here to listen to. Realize that the 9th house is the house of spirituality and truth. And as he really went forth and discovered who he really was through these visions, he became a teacher, a spiritual teacher. That's amazing. Now, another thing, going to David Icke, realize that his Uranus and Moon are in Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. And if you go to where his Mercury is, it's in Pisces, debilitated. So a debilitated Mercury is something else to think about, because I always find that people with debilitated Mercury think outside the box, and he does. And his Mercury, which is so profound, goes to the 6th house of struggles. He has had to struggle to get his truths, his beliefs out there, to get people to listen, which he's been very successful. But if you'll go to the moon, which is in Ardra, Ardra's nakshatra is ruled by Rahu, And if you'll look, Rahu, the dispositing nakshatra ruler, goes to the 5th house. And the 5th house is the house of authorship and writing books. And he's written over 20 books about all of his theories and awakenings and visions. So David Icke is quite the character to look up to and to try to discern what he is trying to teach and tell us. I think he has a very valid informational message that he can help us and help the world with. Just, I find I need to discern a little bit from the wildness of some of it is too negative for me to follow all of it, because maybe I'm too optimistic, but I want to live my life thinking that this world is a beautiful place, not in a place where I feel like people are out to control and destroy everyone else. And even if there are some people out there, which there are, I believe that we can take our power back by choosing to look at the good in the world. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on me or a chart reading, you can always go to my website, galacticcenter.org, and don't forget to sign up for my free newsletter. Furthermore, if you would like to take your learning to the next level, go to my university website where I have an all-online university to learn Vedic astrology, which is University of Vedic Astrology.com. Thank you.